I'll give you a couple more minutes just to cool down and then we'll get started, right? How did everyone go in the session? He did try and kill you? He did try and kill you? Oh, it's a smile. Multiple complaints every Saturday. I might just get started, guys. Guys, because they'll come and turn up late, that's all good. So, first of all, I just want to thank you all for actually coming. So it's awesome to see a turnout and see you guys that we get to see every day and work with come to something and always trying to strive to be better. So first thing, thank you for coming. Next after that, today we're going to go through some things. Mainly I want it to be a little bit thought-provoking. So with goals and trying to achieve things, it's not easy obviously, and you guys know that, and you're here for a reason because it isn't easy. And it isn't easy for anyone that achieves something of, to them, high value. So normally there's a lot of hurdles and there's a lot of things in the way, and it can get pretty difficult from there. So today we're going to try and, we've got a few little games and stuff to do as well, a few questions, and we have some tactics towards the back end. But number one, hopefully once you leave here, you think a little bit differently about how you approach things than when you first came in. So first of all, a little bit about me. You guys know a bit, but for someone standing in front of you, telling you how to achieve things, if you don't have a little bit of a story or, I don't know, a bit of merit, it's hard to really take that on board. It's like someone, say if I was really out of shape, didn't look after myself at all, and I was like, you have to do this, and this to be in shape, it doesn't come across very clear, does it? So, in terms of achievement, through younger Nates and now, there's been a few things, except the strategies that we're going to talk about today are things, at first, I wasn't conscious I was using, but when I got taught them from business mentors, like life coaches, psychologists, like people that I've come across along the way, that have taught me things, I started to piece things together that actually have been working, whether I was conscious of it or not, and those things are what we're going to go through today. So, as you go through your journey and things pop up just like they did for me and they will continue to do as I go through it and your goals change and whatnot, there'll be things that get in the road, make it very difficult, or sometimes points in the journey that are just confusing and you just feel lost. So when you're in those situations, if you do feel lost or you know what you want, you're just not sure how you're going to come across it, that's when we're going to refer back to the tools that we learned today. Okay, so if you have any questions of more depth, maybe a little bit more personal or anything like that, you can just grab me afterwards or just send me, most of you guys have my number, a text or a Facebook message or whatever it is, and I'd be more than happy to go through that with you guys and then go through a little bit more in depth there. So pretty much, without going into a whole heap of depth, there's Nath. Let's go back to when I was, we'll go through 16 and then I'll take you through to 26 where I am now. And I'll give you some examples of things that I've done in the past, what I've used, and just make it a little bit fast track so I don't talk your ear off for too long. So, when I was 16, so I was playing rugby league for, would have been my 10th year in a row. So, got to a point with that where it just wasn't giving me the same joy and whatnot that it did before. So, didn't know why I was good at it. Now looking back and see the qualities that I had and continue to use now, and this is where I want you guys to have a think back of where you've been successful and you can put things together. I've done that, played my first year of reps there, enjoyed that a little bit, but it just wasn't as fun as surfing and bodyboarding, which was what I was doing at the time, and I just really enjoyed that. So with that, played my first year of reps, then next year decided to quit. Then wasn't that simple, parents didn't want me to, phone calls off rep coaches having a go at me saying, do not do it, you're stupid, don't do that. But they're gonna have, and this is just highlighting again, adversity. So I was 16, mum, dad, people on the phone saying, you're stupid, what are you doing? And I'm sure you guys have had ideas or things that you want to do where that comes up. And there's people saying either, what are you doing that for? Or you're silly to think that, or potentially your goals are just unrealistic. So fast forward, went through, stopped that, quit, didn't really listen to anyone to be honest. So put that aside, took up bodyboarding, done my first year doing that. Absolutely loved it, and that's where passion will come through in your journey as well. Whether it's your career, personal goals, there has to be some underlying thing that actually continues to drive you forward. So went through into that, used a lot of the same things. I think something that I learned through that 10 years though, and it's, hopefully you guys can look back on things you've done, is the one thing I learned was just discipline. So when I was training, when I started to look back and would be a little bit more insightful, there was discipline and then repeating the effort no matter how I felt. So when it was footy, it was training, turning up, training when I was hungover, whatever it was. When you're young, you just do things, but no matter what come up, it's about continually pushing forward and trying to do whatever it was. And I just took that into bodyboarding from there. So fast forward to the end of that year, went quite well. It was a really, really big year. It was really, really tough. Done multiple comps. Ended up coming 5th in Australia and New Zealand for junior men's. And then after that, kind of figured out, so done that, done like the whole box and dice sponsors and things, and then realised, shit, there is zero money in bodyboarding. So I was like 18, loved it, was doing quite well at it, except seeing people that are in like their 30s, and then like trying to have a family, all of those things, and it's just like not happening at all. So that put the brakes on really, really quickly for me, and also at the same point in time, my mental health took a massive, massive dive. So whether that was correlated or not, it could have been, except for whatever reason, that came up, and then that was my next biggest hurdle. So from 16, 17, 18, from the periods of there, worst would have been around between 16 and 17. So that came up. Then completely, like, when we're talking about hurdles for me in particular, that was like the biggest one. Still the biggest hurdle that I've faced today, and the hardest one that I've come back from. Not to go into too much depth, except this is where in your journey, where seeking help and guidance and things like that can help a lot. So for me personally, tried to solve it myself for probably like 4, and this is a good lesson for you guys as well, except you guys are here seeking help, so you're probably past that point. Probably like 4 or 5 months. Just try to sort it out myself, try to sort out my own thoughts and my own, I guess, problems, we'll just call them. And then from that point, did not get anywhere, like nowhere at all. Felt helpless, felt lost, finally spoke to my parents. They tried to help, seen far out 4 psychologists before I actually find that one that was any good or could understand where I was coming from. So then that's more barriers. So you might start your goal, have your journey, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this training style, or I'm going to have this career, and then similar with that for me, the hurdle was, okay, I need to actually find help, found help, help didn't help. So then that's when that point in time you go, shit, I'm doing all the right things on paper, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that, and it's just not actually going anywhere. So we'll fast forward a little bit again. Once I found the right person, we'll go through this in a second too, the right support network, it actually moved through, luckily enough for me, pretty quickly. So I went through quite a low period of time, and then Nate, we'll say Nate's about 18, 19 at this point, coming out, found physical training, that helped so much at first. I remember my brother was like, come to the gym with me, he's 30, alright, 36 this year, so he's 10 years on me. Tried to get into the gym, I was like, no, I'm not having a bar of it, don't like anyone there. I had this like predetermined idea of what it was like. And then finally went like, alright, he asked me for like 5 or 6 times. Then my little brother was going, and I tried to do something with him at home, and then I think he outbenched me or something at home, and I was like, no, that's it, I'm going in, I'm going to do that now. Found that, and like that, I think as I was coming out and using the tools that I've got from Support Network, and then actually finding that confidence and movement through there helps so much. And that's really the reason why I do what I do today, is to offer that vehicle for other people to take and then make of it what they want to do. So we've gone through there, Nate starts training, really, really likes it, but really doesn't like the gym setting. So it was like this little bit of turmoil inside. I was like, really love training, commercial gyms are most certainly not for me. So started to look online, do other things. That leads to Nate moving through, doing nutrition and dietetics, his certifications, all that stuff. So obviously I finished school at this time as well, so I just done that stuff. That wasn't too bad, just done the work, pretty simple, like done my certs, whatnot, continued to educate myself, except then Nate goes into his career. 19, almost 20, I moved to Newcastle from the coast. I'm up here, started working next door to where Jacob was working at the time. doing that, really enjoying it, and then that brings me to my point where my own experiences, my own achievements, and other people and helping them, that's where like the gap was. So I could talk about how I achieved things, or you need to do this or you need to do that, except that didn't always help someone to achieve what they want. So almost 27 now in a couple of days. That's, what's that, 8 years of trying to help people get from where they're at to where they want to be. And then over that period of time, you find patterns and you come up with things, and you find mentors that can actually make it a lot clearer as to why some people succeed and then some people don't succeed. And then going back to the start, where I said I wasn't so much conscious about how I got through different periods or why I achieved certain things, except now, at this point, I can look back and know you can break it down into there's actually not that many things. There's a few qualities that you need to have, and then if you can have those qualities and just be consistent, you'll achieve what you want to achieve. So anyway, last of it all to where I am now, working. Me and Jake gravitated towards each other super quick. We had the same ideas around things, really wanted to help people, and I think me and Jake were the most similar out of the group we were working with. I think we both had probably just the most genuine desire to help people and not just be a personal trainer. For some reason there's like a big, what would the right word to use here? People jump into it for the wrong reasons and then they soon to leave after that. But anyway, that brings Jake and I was in a relationship at the time, not so good relationship, fine at the start and then stayed in it, and then long story short, me and Jacob training, I'd split up with my partner, Sarah comes in, Jacob tells me, no, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't date a client, that's wrong. And then internally, I go, no, he's probably right actually, he's probably right. Another hurdle that come up, except didn't listen to Jacob again.
Never listens to me.
Didn't listen to Jacob, followed that, and then here I am now with everything. Married to Sarah, we've got Macy. Business, that is something we'll go through a little bit later on without the story. That's just going to be what I'm going to teach you guys today. So how to juggle everything, try and do your best, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, and it doesn't mean that it stops once you achieve something either. I think that's something that we need to get clear today. Once you achieve what you think, it'll just change. Like it'll be something else, and it'll be challenges, and it'll be tough, and you'll go through that. It's not so much about the success at the end, it's more so about getting better at this process. If you get better at the process, you can take it wherever you like from there. Alright, so enough of me talking. Jake's going to kick you off on your first few things. Just keep an open mind, answer the questions the best you can, and I will be up in a second to help you out with the next bit as well.
Alright, we'll open up the first page, guys. And this is going to be a lot of like you guys doing the work here, and I'm just going to help guide you guys through it. So first up, what I want you guys to start off with is writing down like where do you see yourself at the end of the year? Like not so much about, okay, I want to lose 5 kilos, I want to do this, I want to do that. But overall, it's like if you look at yourself at the end of 2020, who's that person look like? How does that person carry themselves? What's different about them there than where you are right now? And just start to elaborate on those. I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to do this and really think about it. A thing that I really want you to focus on here though is like, be brave with it. Like, don't just write down the really surface shit. Like, the more that you're willing to actually open up to yourself on this right now, the better that you're going to be able to carry that through the rest of the workshop and have better outcome off the back end of it. And part of this as well is like, we're going to cover some stuff later on, but this is just where you guys are at right now, and then we're going to go through some stuff. We're going to come back to this at the end of today as well. So take a couple of minutes, really think about who that person is. What are the actions and habits that you take on a daily basis, a weekly basis that might be different to where you are right now and the things that you want to bring on board. So let's have about a minute here. If you have any questions, yell out. But really, this is really about your own perception right now. Once you guys start getting through that, then I want you to break down into those goals. So we're going to move into like what are the top 3 achievements that you want to make this year? That's where we can talk, okay, I want to lose 10 kilos, I want to do a 200 kilo deadlift, whatever those goals might be. And I'm going to quickly cover like one of our clients the other day. You guys might have seen on Instagram, Lauren Wells, she hit her first 110 kilo deadlift, which is PR for her. I asked her 3 weeks ago, I was like, what's your goal for 2020? It's like, oh, I just want to get like 110 kilo deadlift. Like, it's not even January finished yet, and she's already done it. And that was her big vision for the year for training. Like, so play big here, guys. You can do a lot more than you think if you're willing to put in the work for it. Anyone got anything this year that they want to bring up, that they're going to make a commitment, they're going to say it in front of the group right now, or something they want to work towards this year? Nath, do you want to talk just to get people talking?
Oh, this year.
Are you actually training this year, or?
Yes, yeah, no, for me this year, I want to be around business and then also in family and life as well. But you know, back into training was a little bit harder and progressing there. But it'd be more so taking care of myself consistently, training more so than numbers sort of thing. And then to do that, you make that consistency.
Cool. Anyone else, anything they want to share? Goals, achievements. It doesn't have to be in the gym as well, guys. Here, like this is like an overall thing for looking at your life in general. So you don't have to go, all right, everything that I write in this whole page here is all physical. Like if you want to buy a house this year and you need to then like build up your savings or whatever, it all comes down to the same things. Like at the end of the day, your motivations and drivers for those sort of things, like choosing to save money as opposed to going out drinking on a Saturday night and spending $300, like it still comes down to the same piece that will actually get you over the line to taking action with that. So you guys don't have to limit yourself there, but it's really up to how you guys want to take it. So I've had a couple of minutes here. I want to move into the next page. If you guys are still writing, keep on going with it, but I'm just going to start riffing on it now and we'll see where we're at. And this one's going to be a little bit more practical, but like, why aren't you there yet? It can be a really, really scary thing to have to answer, but like what are some of the reasons why these goals that you have for the year or this person that you see yourself becoming, you're not already there? And like this can get a bit emotional, it can be a little bit scary to share it, but is there things that you like have let get in the way in the past? Is there certain habits that have got in the way? Is it work? Is it I don't know, like a bad relationship that you just like, it might be a friendship that you're like, oh, this person's a bad influence on me, but I just keep on going back and spending time with them, and every time I do that, I end up getting drunk again. So sorry if anyone's thinking that they're that bad influence on somebody else right now. And like, be open to sharing here, guys, like this will really, really be helpful. I know for me, for a long time, like, I used to blame, it was my parents' fault that I wasn't where I wanted to be because they didn't eat as healthy as I should be and that I don't make the choices in the house. I had complete control of that shit, but I chose to actively blame somebody else instead of taking ownership of that. I know for a long time I was like, oh, I work too much to be able to train more. But a lot of these things that come up, if I say them to you, you're like, that's bullshit, man. But when you say it to yourself, it's a real thing. And this is part of the process. If you're actually saying it out loud, if you're willing to share it, then you start to realize that some of those things might not be a problem. And, or better yet, you start to realize how you can actually get around that to moving yourself forward. So, like you might have had, I might have squatted more, but my knees always hurt. And it's like, what are you going to do about fixing your knees so that then you can squat more? Is there anything here that comes to mind, anything that anyone wants to share on like what's been in the way for them to getting towards those goals? Or the other option here is maybe it's a new goal that you're taking on. Maybe you've never tested out something in this on this journey. You want to open up a business. Like, why haven't you done it before? I've never wanted to. So that's completely fine too. Anybody? Nobody's sharing? This works out really like heaps better if somebody's willing to share. And like, I'd rather somebody be open to it and starting it than me picking out names.
I find myself, I'm always going back to like my sleeping routine.
Yeah.
And why I was like this morning why I didn't come was because I slept in. It's like I stay up late, or I just cannot sleep, period, and then I can't wake up, and then I feel crap through the day. And then like I do a full-on job, and then as soon as I actually do it, I have such a great day, and I know how good it feels, but it's just so much easier because I'm tired.
Cool, I like that, easier. And it's a true thing, we're ingrained to follow like the path of least resistance. Like it's a big psychological thing that we, as a species, are like pretty much designed to grow up, have sex and reproduce, and then like recover. Like the whole thing is survival. So if getting up is like harder and it impacts on that, like being recovered, being fresh, and that those normal mechanisms of survival, it's going to be harder to do. That's how your brain works to stop you from taking action on those things sometimes. And then you just have to figure out ways of getting around that. Like we constantly face a battle between, has anyone heard the concept of like your lizard brain thing, or like you have basically like a primal level of your brain that's its responsibilities are those core things for survival and comfort. And then we have the brain that's developed over time that's cerebral cortex, and like we don't need to get into that. Kelly can probably actually tell me way more about this than I can because she's smart and I'm not really that smart. But the piece with that there is like that's what like all your conscious thought comes from. That's what all these goals, this vision for the future, like a lot of like animals that don't have this part of your brains, like the bigger part of your brains, don't actually have the ability to foresee into the future. That's why if you put like dogs and you give them food, and then they stop, and then you give them more food, and then they stop, and you give them more, and then they just keep on eating over and over and over again. That's because they don't have that vision of going, oh, okay, if I eat too much now, I'll be sick later. So they just keep on going and going and going because it's like, oh, food means that I can survive. So it comes back to that. They only have that piece there. We have this piece of our brain that has aspirations, has goals, have things that we want to work towards, but the problem with that is that's fighting against the other part of our brain that just wants to cruise and just basically survive and reproduce. So we're in a pretty well constant battle most of the day if we want to make these big goals happen and change things in our lives. But the key is you can still win that battle. It's not to give up against that, it's finding how we can move forward and then taking action on that consistently. So let's move forward into what's the plan? Like everyone here, let's say the example of weight loss. Pretty much everyone in this room knows what they should and shouldn't eat. Like would have a general plan of if they need to lose 10 kilos in the next 6 months, you guys would know how to do it, right? So I want you guys to like think about the goals that you guys have set first, and what's the plan that you guys already have in place for that? Because we can help you out with this here, but you guys are going to have the best idea of what's going to resonate with you on like, okay, this is what I'm going to take action on first. And let's start with that piece. And then we're going to come back on that and help out and refine on that sort of thing pretty soon. But I want you guys to just really, really think about like how you go about it now. Is it the same thing that you used last time? If this is a goal that you've tried in the past and maybe you've succeeded and fallen off the wagon and then coming back around to it now, did it work last time? Is it something that you've tried in the past and it didn't work out? And if it didn't work out, why not? What was the piece that was missing there? Was it one of these other blockers that got in the way and the actual plan's solid, the actual plan works, but we just didn't refine the other pieces around the rest of our life to actually let us achieve that goal? Anyone want to share their plans on reaching their goals?
I feel like more capable. Like maybe like this time last year, I didn't know that I could do all the things that I did now. I feel like now I feel more motivated because I feel like I can actually do it.
Belief, yeah, that's perfect. Like, and that's a huge thing there, and we'll cover on that. It's in one of the following up pages, but if you don't feel like you can actually achieve the goal or you don't have the confidence in yourself, it's a much harder uphill battle.
I think the biggest limitations are fear of failure.
Fear of failure, perfect. And that's where those things like, Swiffy, you said, like it's easy to stay in bed. Like if that's a subconscious brain piece, a lot of the time that's that fear of failure. It's like, well, what if I get up and I train and I eat good and then 6 months down the track I still don't get to my goals, then it was all a waste of time. But there's a lot of other benefits that you get from it that's not going to be a waste of time. Like as you said, you feel better when you make the effort to go to the gym. You're at work better, everything else flows on better, but then the fixation of going, oh, well, the goal's just, I just want to lose 5 kilos or whatever, but what happens if that doesn't happen? Then the whole thing wasn't worth it. It sounds ridiculous when I say it like that, but when it's inside of your head and it's acting before you actually get to make actions, then it's very real, and it's a very scary thing when it's in there. Once it's out there and you're talking about it to people, like, you sound like you're crazy if you're telling somebody that, and they're like, dude, what are you talking about? When it's yourself, when we're fighting that battle in our head, it's a lot bigger, it's a lot scarier, and there's only you there to back you. And this is where the power of having a supportive network, like Nate was talking about before, is super, super important in getting you there. Let's roll on to the next page, and this is where we started talking about belief. So, like, the big piece here is like our perception of ourselves, our perception of the goals. Is it scary? I'm going to pick on Grace right now. When you first qualified for the Arnolds, did you believe that you belonged there?
No, I still don't sometimes.
Yeah. And like, honestly, this is my story like 12 months ago. Like, I actually had my memory popped up on Facebook this morning was when I received my invite 12 months ago to last year's Arnolds. And I remember I called Brad, my coach at the time. I had a chat with him on the phone. I was like, do you think I'm ready? Like, do we do this now? And he's like, doesn't matter whether you're ready or not, we're doing it. Like, that was all I needed to hear. I was like, oh, right. Like, my perception was I'm not up to the standard. I don't deserve that spot yet. I need to put the work in, and then I'll be ready for that there. But a lot of the time when you think it's like, oh, I'll be ready when, a lot of the time that comes down to you like, I'll be ready when I've already done it. That never works. That's a loop that keeps on pushing you further and further away from your goals in going, oh, I'll be ready to be a fit person when I'm already looking fit and in shape. It's like, well, the first step to getting to that point is you need to start taking action. You need to start doing the things that the fit people are doing. Has anyone listened to the podcast at the start of this week? No, nobody listened. We have a few listeners to the podcast. Sambo normally listens every week. The one episode that Sambo hasn't listened to, but in that episode I talked about it was like the first step is like if you have something that you want to get towards, somewhere that you want to become, we need to start thinking like that person first. You can't start like expect yourself to become something when you're not already thinking like you're going to be a fitter person, and then once you're thinking like that person, you're starting to see yourself as that person, you start acting like that person. If you need to be a fit person, and a fit person trains 5 days a week, and right now you're training once a week, well, you need to start training 2 days a week, and then 3 days a week, and then 4 days a week, and by the time that you're up to training 5 days a week, you're still probably not at that peak of where you expect yourself to be a fit person, but you're going to start to be embracing that change and embracing that person who you're becoming and those habits and those actions that you're taking every day. And those are the things that actually make the change. It's not the already looking like you have a six-pack and or already having the 200 kilo deadlift. It's the process, and it's engaging in those pieces as you work your way along that and doing those habits like you are where you want to be that actually helps with that mental transition. So let's talk about like your environment, like pretty much all the things that set up your perception. What are some things here that like are going to create the way that you see yourself and create the way that you see the goals that you have?
Like supportive people around you.
Perfect. Supportive people, like the environment, like if you're around, like Nate said before, when he wanted to quit footy and everyone was like, no, you can't quit footy, that's not a good idea for you. Like the network around him at that point in time, even though they were all trying to help, weren't necessarily productive to where he wanted to go. And let's say, for example, you work in an office where everyone doesn't care about their health and they all eat junk food, get takeout, and then every time you come in and you've got your nice like prepared meal from Industrial, we'll give them a little plug there, you've got your meal prep done, and they come in and like, what are you eating that for? There's only so long you can put up with that ridicule until you're like, oh, screw it, I'm just going to go and get KFC and bring it back in for lunch because that's what everyone else is doing. The big thing there is like, okay, well, how do we spend less time with those people because the environment is going to pull you down? Anything else that your perception is influenced by?
Past experience.
Perfect. Past experiences, like, that's where we said before, is like if you failed at a goal before and you haven't reached that point that you're going to, and then you come back into that starting point and you're going back from, okay, I'm back here now, and I know where I got to before, I know it got scary, it got hard, like I didn't get to my goals, then pretty much like part of that is then, okay, well, how do we practice success so that we're moving forward and we break down those beliefs of if our past is always like, I don't follow through on anything. It's like, how do we teach you to follow through on something, even if it's something little? And it might be looking back, as Nate said, is like looking back, it's really, really easy. You might think that you never follow through on anything, but everyone here, I'm pretty sure, finished at least most of their schooling. So you followed through there. Like, you still got up out of bed this morning. So you followed through there, you turned up here. So there is cases of it, but we're really, really good at identifying our negatives. We're not so good at identifying these positive habits sometimes that are going to help us push forwards and change our perception on what we're actually doing. There's pretty much like one other thing that Lydia alluded to before, is like our beliefs and worldview. It's like how we view the world around us, our beliefs about ourselves. These all come into creating this perception of what's possible. And this is one thing, that's all right. I'm not going to get mad about that. That if we can change our perception, then we can change the way that we approach our goals. So we're going to flip on over now. We're going to have a bit of fun. Oh, it might be fun. It might be like a mental challenge for some people. I found this hard the first time. You guys are going to get split up into groups, and the task here is going to be, we're going to take 10 seconds to draw as many triangles as you can. Now, I don't need them to be like perfect triangles. They just need to be triangle shaped, like close enough to it. Yeah, you can be a timer, man. But what we're going to do, you can use any method you want. I don't care how you do it. And we're going to have a couple of cracks at this as well. And we're then going to take it through the groups, and we're going to pull out some people and see if people want to take it on the board for me over here. So, Nate, you got our timer?
Sure do.
Is everyone ready?
Well, I'm not ready.
Nate's not ready?
Alright.
On Nate's call.
Alright, so we can do 3.
Yeah, also Bev, Nick, you guys did this with me today. You don't tell anyone. You just sit back and don't do it.
You're excluded anyway. Alright, 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, Patriots.
So much pressure and tension. That's halfway. 3, 2, 1, stop.
Cool. We're going to have like, count up how many you got on your first crack. Put it somewhere. Just write it down. We're going to have a second crack. And get creative here, guys. Like, on the second one, don't just try to be faster than you were on the first one at doing the same thing. Try something different. Try test out the waters, see what else you can create as a means to getting to the goal.
Alright.
On next count.
3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, Grace, see?
3, 2, 1, stop. Is there some excellent strategies going out?
Okay, so I'm having a quick squiz around. This is actually pretty good. Most of the time when we do this, we don't have as many people do what I think is the actual, like, the best strategy to go about.
Has anyone done this before?
Yeah, has anyone done anything like this, or do we just have a couple of people who are really, really creative? Has anyone spoken to me about it? Because I've talked about this with a few people before.
No, I haven't.
You cheat, right?
Grace has been cheating.
It's really creative.
Grace is hanging out beside the office, listening to us when we're talking about it clearly. Alright, so let's come up with the strategies that you guys use with this. Who just drew individual triangles on one of them? And admit it. 1, 2, 3.
Makes you feeling better, Nick, and then at least I'm saying.
Yeah, so when we did this the other day, I knew what was going on. Nate did it and drew individual triangles with a line in between each one of them to double them up. Nick went second.
That's not the best way.
And did singular triangles the whole way across the board. And then Bev went afterwards.
I got 19.
And did the exact same thing as what Nick did, but didn't beat the time. So, like, to give the point of that is, like, we're not necessarily the most creative, like, people in that sort of way as well. But who did some other methods? Tell me about what somebody did. Kelly?
You did squares and then put a cross through the middle.
Who didn't think of that?
I didn't do that.
Yeah, so Jack did that as well.
But I don't know if it's the same. Probably not. And then I just...
Jack just made like...
And then I just put some other triangles on top.
You just made...
Just sprinkled the triangles.
I just went like that and then just put a line.
Yeah.
And top and bottom.
There.
That's genius.
So that is like the best way to draw like rough triangles quickly, basically. Like if you want to get a lot, if that's the best way to go about it. So there's a couple of things here.
You want to do it on the board, don't you?
Yeah, if anyone doesn't know, like we've got the option of just individual triangles. We've got triangles with a line through it. We've got boxes. Anything else before I get up to that last one? Will's got a big ass triangle with a whole bunch of little ones.
And also some rectangles in there as well.
So we've got different ways of doing it. And then Samo's got similar, like a triangle with different styles of triangles in there. Samo's too strong for paper. And then we have the way that the other guys were doing, which is basically line, line. As I said, they don't have to be perfect triangles, so rough is completely fine. But see how much quicker I was able to do that versus the rest of those. So I guess there's always going to be a best way to do something, but we're not always going to have the perception to find that there. But out of all these options, how many, like, who thought of 3 different ones? No?
I drew inspiration for Lauren for my second copy.
Yeah, and so that's what we're going to get towards. Like, how can you change your perception? One of the key ways to it is exposure to what other people are doing. If you've only ever, when you're trying to lose weight, followed low-carb diets and hours and hours of cardio, and you don't know anything else, you're just going to go back to the same thing. But then if you're, say I'm talking to Nathan, I'm like, Nathan, how do you lose weight? I'm just doing hours of cardio and this is all I can think of. And he's like, oh, well, you can actually do this instead. I'm like, that's like a mind-blowing moment. Sort of, if you go through that enough times and you get enough exposure to different ways that people will do things, it starts to open up our perception. It starts to create the potential that when we have something like a limiting belief that whether it's like, I'm not good enough or I'm meant to be overweight, what is it like? I know everyone that's like big when they're a kid gets told, it's all right, you're just big boned. And then they carry that as like, I'm just meant to be a big person like everyone else. I was a chubby little kid and I was like way heavier. I think I was like 70 kilos leaving primary school. And then by the end of high school, I was only like 80. But I was like a big kid and I was getting told that, okay, you eat a lot, you're a big kid, it's all right. Like, and my brother's super skinny. If anyone's seen my brother, he's like my height, but like 20 kilos lighter and just stick thin. And it was like, oh no, Jai's the athlete of the family. You're like I was a smart kid, but I was a smart kid that ate a lot of food. And it's like, if you just keep on getting told that through your life, you start to believe that. And it takes things to create the potential that belief isn't true by exposure to other things around you, for you to actually open up and go, hey, you know what, maybe that's not true. Maybe I'm not an unathletic, just smart kid that's just supposed to do that. Maybe I can go and achieve stuff in that there. And that all comes down to us being willing to open up our perception. So we're going to hand it over to Nath. He's going to start talking about a few thought-provoking questions that can hopefully start opening up the way that you guys think and get a bit of exposure there.
I'm super impressed to everyone that got that first go.
Cheers.
I honestly did not think anyone could do it. That is very, very impressive. Alright guys, so I'll try not to keep you guys here longer than you expected. I know you all have weekends to attend to. So we're on the question page. So it says, I've got a question for you. So there's 3 questions here. I'm going to read through them. I want you guys to have a good think about them. So with these questions, you don't really even need to answer them if you don't want. You can just leave it internal, or you can just keep them with you for the rest of your process, or bring them back up again. Okay, so this isn't just like a one and done thing. So I can ask myself these things now, and I could ask them again in 2 weeks, and they'd probably still be relevant. And the answer may change, because you're like, so where you are now, and so let's say that's point A, and then point B is my end goal. The journey to get there will never be as you think it is, ever. Like if it is, tell me if someone's experienced that, please. But I've never experienced it, I've never spoke to anyone that's experienced it. It's always going to be zigzags, hurdles, jumps, loops, everything until you get there. That's when things like this can help ground you again and then help you moving forward. So, first one is, how is your current perception living your thoughts and actions? So we covered that with the game. We thought that'd be a lot of fun to do it in that sense. So it makes it just real, I guess you could say. Like doing that and doing the triangles, this was me. 3 steps behind the most efficient way to do it. So it just shows you that if you're aware or not aware of it, your thoughts and perceptions are either limiting you or enhancing you, or sometimes a combination of both. So the next one after that, this is a really good one, and this one helped me the most because I thought to take action or to get moving or to achieve this certain thing, especially here, like a business, like I thought that I needed more than I already had to start or to pursue it or to do something. So I thought there was this certain point in time, and when Jake was speaking about that before, it was pretty much dead quiet. So because I think he had a lot of your attention because it was relevant for a lot of you. So what do you currently need from the person you want to be that you don't already have? So actually, if you can, I'd like you to jot down just a few things on that one for me. I'll give you a minute, 2 minutes to do that. If it's not enough time, that's cool too. You can just come back to it for me later. Except this is super important. I can't stress this one enough. And if things are popping up and then you're dismissing them in your head, you're probably already answering your own question, is that you probably don't need them. So this was a massive one for me personally. And from my experience over the last seven, almost 8 years of working with people, this is a very common one. And one more thing on this question. If you've written something down and it's not associated with the goals you wrote down before, you have a big gap there. Alright, just keep that in mind. Alright, and then this one's a really cool one that I only come across not that long ago, except I really wish that I got told this ages ago. How are you involved in creating the conditions you say you don't want? So I think that's a really powerful question, and it really takes a lot of ownership to look internally and actually say I do X, Y, and Z and I'm responsible for those actions, and that's what's limiting me from achieving this, this, and this. And that doesn't mean you have to get down on yourself about that. It's just awareness, okay? Through the process of achievement or whatever it is you're trying to achieve, like I said, it'll never stop. You're not gonna get fit or own a business or, I don't know, whatever you guys want to do, and then that's just it. And then you just live the rest of your life without anything. And, it's always gonna continue to pop up. So you'll probably notice patterns as well with these questions. So say, with myself personally, when I go through these, so there's a few things I do with the last question, except one is I'll lose sight of the overall bigger picture and longevity of things to just being as disciplined as possible and not listening to anything. So I'll just like bury my head in something, just go 100 miles an hour, but not be aware of anything else either side, whether it's like, say, whether it's training or with business and things like that. It'll be, and I'll get better as I go, and I can look back into, like I spoke to you guys about with when I played rugby league, or when here's actually a very good example. When I was bodyboarding, I had the comps coming up, and my mates would go out and they'd surf, and I would not go in. Like I would stay out because I wasn't as good as I wanted to be, and that wasn't a negative thing, I just knew I could do better. So I'd stay out. One day I surfed for it was like sun up till sundown, and didn't do anything except surf, and then I had to go to the hospital because I had sunburnt eyes, and I had to wear these freaking weird glasses for like 4 or 5 days and wasn't allowed to go outside. And the guy was like, "Are you fucking kidding yourself? What are you doing?" And I was like, my mum's just like shaking her head at the hospital, and she was like, "Nathan, why do you do these things?" I was like, I need to get better. It's full like, far out, if I still had my old like Nokia phone that I took photos on back then, probably, but I full had like strip, and it was so like red. And I woke up, obviously crashed out afterwards, got home, mum picked me up, and then got home, crashed out in the lounge, and then she woke me up for dinner, and I was like, I cannot open my eyes, like cannot open them. So yeah, no, but that's a good example of me and my problems, because I was so fixated on this thing. I was like, I am doing well at this no matter what it takes, except I would have done a lot better if I came in, went home, and then surfed for the next 5 days periodically, and then didn't have sunburnt eyes where I couldn't see for 5 days. So that's just a funny story for you anyway, but just be reflective, look internally and see what you're doing, and also be aware or be big enough to look at things you're blaming externally and look how you're actually influencing that. So say if what Jacob said, like my external influence, they always eat this, this and this. Actually look at yourself, because you're, like he said, placing yourself in a situation. Like you do control your whole life. You just are making a decision where you want to put up with something because the consequence isn't, I guess for lack of a better term, it isn't bad enough or it isn't that bad, so you just continue to go through the process, or you're going to take action and move away. Like you can change anything. It's like when people, like, and it is hard though, because I don't want to come across as standing in front of you telling you what to do and then you're like, mate, you just don't understand, like I got this, this and this going on. Like I can understand it gets really hard, that's why I started off with what I said. Like with my mental health, it was not easy to seek help. Like not easy at all. Like that was the hardest thing I've ever possibly done. So I can touch base there in a long-term relationship, left it because it wasn't what either of us wanted anymore, except we were just going through the motions. That is not easy. Like that is not easy either. And then with the business, going into debt, borrowed $500 a week off Sarah to stay alive. Thank God that I was with her. And we, overall, I think we spent around $30,000 on business coaching. Yeah. And we don't earn that much, trust me. Like that is a lot of money. Like it's not easy, except you need to be clear and honest with yourself about where you're at, what is limiting you and how you can change it. Like, and just because it's not easy doesn't mean it needs to be changed either. You just need to have the conversation with yourself. Like there are examples from me where it was hard. Like it was really, really hard. Went from pretty stable job, pretty easy, like got clients ourselves through a feeding system, so we didn't have to stress too much about how many people we had. It was pretty easy going. Wasn't challenged, wasn't motivated to turn up to work that much anymore because it just was no longer mentally stimulating, and then wanted more. And like Jake and I aren't anything special by any means. I know we haven't taken over the world by any means, but from going from, oh yeah, I forgot something actually. Sarah and I bought a house when I opened up here. So that gives you context around like how hard things can be. Like, so we bought a house, I was like, yeah, we'll get the business up and running, it'll be fine, don't stress, I just need $500 a week from you just so I can eat, and we'll be fine. And then went through that, and then so many different things. I won't go through any more story stuff, but that just gives you an example of when I talk to you and I say, acknowledge these things, like be aware of them and try and make change. It's not just like, Nate, you don't get it. Everyone's experience is individual and no one's going to understand as much as you understand. But you've got to remember it's not easy for anyone. And it's all relative to, like, whether it's weight loss or someone's trying to run a multi-million-dollar company or something, the struggles are relative and the feelings associated with the struggles are probably the same. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, we'll move on. So, we've spoken about this a little bit because we've kind of riffed on the topic as we went. Understanding your behaviours and identifying barriers. So this is where I feel as though the real gold lies. So being able to pursue your desired achievements in the face of obstacles, boredom, fatigue, stress and the desire to do other things can be extremely challenging. Who can agree with that? So that probably encapsulates everything as to why someone hasn't achieved something in the past. That's come up in some way, shape or another, and it actually gets to the point where you feel as though, like what Jacob referred to before, it's easier to not do it than it is to do it. And that's just pretty much just your, like Jacob mentioned before, your brain just trying to take over. But you still have the choice. It just doesn't mean it's an easy choice. Back to my other point. Moving through, guys, we're going to move on to motivation. I'm going to try and get through this pretty quick because I don't want to keep this too long. So, with motivation, there's a few different ways. It gets broken down, and I got taught this, but then I done some research before doing this just to remember what it was. When I've seen the good one, psychologist, he broke it down into ways, 4 ways in terms, this is motivation, but he was speaking more about reason to pursue things, or reasons to think about things, or reasons to problem solve and things like that. So we're going to go through this now. So there's 4, and I want you to have a read of the 4 and just try and identify with a few. I personally, when I say that, this is my personal opinion, I don't think any of them are necessarily bad. It depends how long you stay in each one. Okay, so I'll repeat that again. I don't think any of them are necessarily bad. It depends how long you spend in each one. So we'll go through these. There's internal positive, external positive, internal negative, and external negative. So it has a little bit of a description on each one for you guys to have a read. With myself, I've experienced all 4. I'm sure most of you guys have too, and that's why I wanted to highlight that they have their place, except how long you spend in each one will dictate how toxic your progression is. So you would know there's a lot of people that have massive nice house, like earn all this money and do everything, but they're completely miserable. Like completely miserable. And that generally stems down to this. It's like, what's the underlying driver? What's actually causing that change? Yes, they've achieved a lot, except have they come from a place that will never be like satisfied? And if that's the case, then you need to look back and you need to think, how am I going to move away from this? So you can still utilize it to drive change. Like, to go back to the mental health thing, I didn't move from a place of positivity because I'm so excited to change this and to achieve back to my normal health and do those things. It was from a point of pain. So I was like, I don't want to be here. This is terrible. I'm moving away from this, and how am I going to do that? So that's a bit of a reflection for you guys to look where it is, except be aware. And you want to eventually move into the positives, obviously. Internal positives are the best. But it doesn't mean you have to start there, or it doesn't mean that's what it has to be all the time. So, moving through. So this is my favourite one. Doing the work. So, Jacob wrote this one down in the front. He's put it very nicely. You're not always going to be excited to do it, but the job still needs to get done. So there's a certain amount of actions between, and this is honestly, and as we've gone through everything, it's been fun, we've been talking about it, there's been stories, and it comes to this bit, it's just not that fun. Like, the work's not that fun, and like grinding or like hustling and what people say, like it's, what's the word? It's like glorified now, or people try and display it, I think, through social media, where it's like an enjoyable thing, and then when you're not enjoying it, you're like, I must be doing something wrong. It's not that fun. Just like, it's not. Like, doing 12-hour days here, isn't that fun? Waking up at 4 in the morning with Macy, isn't that fun? Like, there's things that just aren't that fun, but they're necessary and they have to get done, okay? So just be clear on yourself with that. I'll let you guys have a read through that if you wish, but we'll move on to the next point. So, starting again. So what we want to do here, guys, is with the hopefully refreshed / new outlook on everything, because of what we've spoken about, hopefully you have a little bit of a different perception on the things that have either stopped you, helped facilitate your goals, or even created your goals in the first place. So like, why do I even want what I want? And to get much clearer with that. So now we want to go through, we've got 3 things here I just want to quickly touch on. How are you planning to overcome the hurdles? Who's in your corner that can help you in this journey? And that's super important, like I touched on before, guys. And what habits and actions do you need to change? So I'm going to quickly let you guys put something down there. So I'll give you 60 seconds. With the second one, guys, that's going to be one of, from personal experience and from working with people, that'll be the biggest one that'll help you when inside your head is pretty much convincing you not to do what you want to do anymore because it's too hard or whatever it is. Then you can look externally. So if you feel as though you're struggling internally, it's normally quite a good, be selective in who you pick, but quite a good decision to seek, whether it's clarity, different perception, or whatever it may be, from an external source.
The reason why you need that too, guys, is like, who's turned up at the gym on a day they haven't wanted to purely because they didn't want to message me or myself or Bev and go, I can't make it today. But to see how that works, like, it doesn't take much to, like, you just need a little bit of that accountability sometimes to step you over the line.
It definitely helps, like, and with the, like, I think that's one of the most valuable things from the business coaching that we got. Like, lots of tools, techniques, this stuff, like, we learn a lot of stuff, but the accountability when you say, I'm going to do this, and then at the end of the week you come in and you're like, I still haven't done that. You don't normally want to be that person. Alright guys, moving through, we'll fast track this. So, best way Jacob and myself have found being taught to achieve things, and this is very targets based, so it gets a little bit more objective rather than subjective measures, but 90-day plan. So with a 90-day plan, we're going to have that as our big goal for now, so we're going to break it down. You can have the big one at the end. It's our 90-day goal. I'm going to break that into 3 30-day periods, and then we're going to break the 30-day periods into weekly periods, so it's attainable. Okay, so that is the easiest way to go about that. So say if, let's just do an easy one, and this isn't true, this is just made up. Say Jake and I want to add 100 members to Newstrength in 2020. Say if we want to do that, then what does that look like? There's going to be a certain way we need to go about it. Like, they're not just going to appear out of nowhere, are they? So there's certain things. So if we broke that down, that would come to a certain part in the 90-day period, and then that would go from 30 to 30 to 30, and then on a weekly basis it would look like a certain number. But then you have to be aware of other things, like we have natural turnover, we have people move away, we have heaps of stuff pop up that you need to be aware of in that and account for in your 30-day periods, except you can adjust it as we go as well. So we'll turn over from there, guys.
Does anyone know why we break it up and go shorter?
So it's achievable and we feel like we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, momentum's is a huge
If I
thing
had a
there.
gold star, you'd get it.
And then the other piece of that as well is, like, as we said before, within like how your brain works with this sort of stuff, is like the base of your brain that we evolved from doesn't think in the future. Like, it can't project that far ahead. And then like, we're really not that good at doing it either over a long term. Like who's gone and ate really good for a few days and is like, oh, this like chocolate's not gonna hurt me, I'll have this chocolate, and then they do that 5 days in a row, and next thing you've gone over your calories and you're not losing weight. So it's like, we're like, oh, hold on, no, I can get away with this, I'll move on to that bit. But if it was a more condensed thing of like, okay, you've got to do this in 7 days, like, oh, I can't have this chocolate because I've got to be here in 7 days, point. So it's like, if we can condense it down, we're good enough at saving for the future when the future's close, or like taking actions when it's just close by. So everyone can pass a test when it's like the test is on this day and you start studying a week out, and you're like, sweet, I got it done. Versus like if I told you to study for a test in 12 months time, there's very few people that actually are going to start studying today. Most of you guys will be like, all right, I'll see you in like 11 months and 3 weeks, and then I'll start studying. So it's like, we're not very good at branching that out too far, so we just need to cut that back down all the time. And that's the purpose of these here.
And then like a good week's easiest after a good week. Like whatever that looks like to you, like whatever's relative. If you have momentum, then it's easier to do the next bit, the next bit, the next bit. It's normally something that comes up that stops your momentum. That is what makes it hard. But let's do it. So we'll go through, let's write down a 90-day goal. So it's pretty much a quarter, if that helps anyone. So 90-day goal, we're going to go through very basic on what we can do to reach this goal. So you want to, with these things, you want to think about what would be most effective. Like, Jacob, what do you refer to? Keylog is what Jacob refers to it as. Can you tell the guys that story, Jacob? Because you do it much more efficiently than I would.
Yeah. Pretty much, like, has anyone ever seen it? It's more in cartoons now that you would still see it than like anything else. But old cartoons, like I remember like Tom and Jerry and that, you'd have like the logging mills, and they have these in Canada, I think they still have them. We don't have much of that around here. But basically they have like the easiest way to get the trees they've cut down through the mill is through like, they put it into the water and have the river float it down for them. Way cheaper, it's way more effective, and then every now and then with how the river flows and how many logs are going through, you get to a log jam. That's where the word log jam came from. But they get jammed up, everything stops, they can't keep on getting stuff down, so they stop making money. So what would most of us do if that happened? Like take all the logs out like one by one until you get there? That's pretty much like, we just go, all right, just sporadically work. They pay a lot of money over there in those big companies to hire like engineers on call whose job is to figure out which log is the one that lets the rest of them flow. So they can come through, they cut that log out, chop it up, and then the rest of the logs start flowing down the river again, and it keeps on moving. Essentially what we're looking at is like that's the key log in that whole system to allow momentum to happen. So instead of trying to like throw everything apart and like get rid of everything out of the way, if you can identify what's the one thing that's going to let me move on to the next goal with the best amount of momentum and the least amount of resistance, the least amount of actual work, that's where you should be applying your focus right now. So that's pretty much where, like, first 90 days starts there. It's like, what's the biggest thing that has a huge impact? Who, when they started off, had a conversation with Nathan or myself and was like, they're like, oh, what should I do with my nutrition? Like, a lot of the people that are like starting back into training, I'm like, just try to eat healthy, don't eat junk now, and we'll worry about that later. The reason why is because it's way easier to focus on one thing at once than do everything. And two is, if you have momentum that you're already training consistently, you're more likely to start making those changes with nutrition, and it'll just flow on, rather than you needing to like do all these things at once and more likely to fail because you're just overwhelming yourself, there's too much work involved, and you don't have any runs on the board. So if we just focus on training first and get consistent there, you're enjoying it, you're turning up, the rest of the piece starts to flow on there, and it's like, okay, no, I'm not gonna go and have pizza tonight, I'm just gonna go and get myself a nice steak and vegetables or whatever your favorite foods are there in that space. So it's an easy thing to do when you figure out where it works from. So once you get your 90 days down, what is our questions after that one, mate?
We'll do one of the 30 days, guys. We won't do the 3, so you guys can get out here soon. So we'll go through your 30-day project. So it's not the hardest thing, is to try and just put down what you want individually. But with this one, what are you focusing on in this 30 days to reach your 90-day goal? And it's very similar. That's why I got Jake to tell that story, because he tells it much better than I do. Try and identify something, and you can come back and change this too. It doesn't have to be set in stone. You got to remember that. You need to be, if you guys get the newsletter or see my Facebook post yesterday, like, you need to be adaptive. Like, you have to be adaptive. With all this stuff here, like, if you have a set plan, you're like, this is the most perfect plan, there's no way I'm going to fail. And then things are coming up and you're like, fuck, this isn't working like how I thought it would work, and you just keep grinding out, and you're going, this really isn't working. Be adaptive, think, how can I do things differently? Go back to those questions and then try and come back, re-establish where you're at, because things will change as you go, your situation will change, the goal may change a little bit, like your strategy may need to change because things just happen. Life doesn't go on hold just because you're trying to do something. Like, everything's going to pop up along the way. You need to be adaptive and still being able to find a certain path to where you want to go. And then that's where it comes back to the accountability, but also what Jake mentioned before as well, like, who are you leaning on? Gets the most, I think, the most value there in those situations where you need either guidance or the accountability or just something to help you get past whatever it is that you feel as though is in front of you, that you can't get past yourself. So I'll let you guys do that. I'm going to give you a minute and a little bit just to write down the 30 days. The other 2 30-day projects are going to be homework for you. And we will know if you've done it or not, because we've got something at the end. So once we've done this, we'll move into the next step.
These should build upon each other as well, guys. So your first 30 days should set up your next one to be better. Your second will set up your third one. That way, as we talk about, it's all like, you can take action on the first and we can create momentum. The momentum gets you progress and you get runs on the board, and then you can keep on moving forward as you go from there.
Your triangle thing was good, though. Yeah, that was good. That would be, I think that'd be just behind that one. Sorry, I just seen it, just flicked your page over. I was like, oh, that's good.
Great work on a second.
So
Yes.
this is what I've done, like, for January. I don't know if anybody else has done this, or like maybe it will help them. But I just printed out like on Word a calendar, and it just says January. And so each time, like, I go to the gym or I swim or I do something, I colour in the box, and like, so I look at it every single day, and then the next, like, I always think, I can't wait to colour in the box tomorrow, like when I do something. And I feel like that has really helped me, like, this month to like get things done.
That's awesome. That's stuff like that's really, really powerful. That's really, really cool. Do you have like color coding?
No,
Or
I
just
just
you
have
color
one.
yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's really, really cool. That's
It's just like
making the the intangible tangible in doing that. Like, you don't know, like, if I just say, oh, like, Jack, you got momentum towards your goals right now, you might be like, yeah, maybe. But you've got like you can see the days. It's like, I've just done something 7 days in a row.
Yeah,
Like,
and
I'm on fire, look at me.
Yeah.
And you can see that. And that's a really powerful thing. That's why, like, the gym is really, really easy with things like, oh, I saw that, like, last week I did 8 reps, this week I did 10 reps of that same weight. I'm getting better. Which is super cool because it teaches us in the action of taking momentum, or taking action and getting momentum.
Yeah.
But that's a super, really, really good way to see it in that, like, longer, that future vision piece as well.
Yeah.
So that's really, really good. So guys, take on Lydia's idea if that's something that's important for you.
I've been doing a similar thing. So each morning I'll write out what I'm going to do for the day, and then at the end of the day I'll tick it all off.
Yeah, perfect.
Just to tick it
So
off, you feel good.
with that too, guys, just to go back a little bit. So that's internal positive, like that system. Because it's like your own internal reward system. You're not doing it for anyone else. Like you see the board, you see the goals, and the ticking it off process gives you satisfaction. So that's when we were talking about that before, and I said it doesn't matter where this starts, but you want to eventually get to that point. That's why. Because they don't need anyone else. If that makes sense. Like they'll utilize people, but they don't need people. Like they just need themselves, and that's what they're doing it for, and that's what's ticking the boxes for himself. Doesn't mean you have to be there to start moving. Like momentum will carry itself, and you will eventually get to that point if you're not already. But that's very much, which is cool that you both said that, very much highlights those 4 things before. Like the internal positive is by far the most powerful long term. It's just about trying to just get momentum and then to slowly utilize things like those tools the guys gave you them to stay in that, I guess you'd call it, mindset.
And if you need help getting to that point, like it's not quite the same thing, but if you get a bit of a boost or a pick me up in hearing from somebody else that you're doing good, like say Jack's doing his to-do list, but every week he brings it into me to be like, hey Jacob, look at how much stuff I got done this week. And I'm like, Jack, you are crushing it, man. And that's the thing that gives him satisfaction. Is like, I'm going to keep on doing this because Jacob tells me that I'm awesome. Yeah. But like, if that's what you need right now to get you rolling, then do it. Like, that's what the accountability piece is for. Like, if you need somebody to help you along that way, whether it is just validation, that's completely fine.
Yeah, it's like when people get a big health scare.
Yeah.
Like, that's not moving, like it's not necessarily, like they're trying to move to a better place, but it's a negative thing that's driving them. So they're like moving away from, say if it's a serious health scare and it's death, they're moving away from that. And that's when you see people transform their whole life. That's an example of how powerful that can be, except you can't stay in that state forever, but it is good for starting change. So just be aware of all of them and just refer back to those 4 if you need to, because you need to be aware of each one and how it's affecting you. We'll move forward, guys, because we're definitely over time now. Weekly actions, you can go through that. So this is like daily habits, and you can just use your routine that you have now. Like you go to work, you just go to the gym, you have a certain eating habits, you do all these things, and those things will influence your day-to-day activities. And you need to look with what you need to do. Sorry about cars talking about house.
That, like those weekly and daily habits is like what Lydia and Jack just said as well. Like that might be some piece of that there is like, I'm going to actively give myself tasks to do for the day and then I'm going to tick them off. Like can be the piece of that, and that's like, all right, I'm going to train 3 days this week or 5 days this week. I'm going to prep my food today, and you write it down and then you go back, you take action on it, then you tick it off. That's where these things can come into it if it's something that's a physical goal. If it's, you're trying to save money to buy a house, so maybe you need to put away $200 each week. And as long as you put that into your account, you don't pull back from that, that week's a success. So whatever those can be.
I find once you start ticking things off, you feel like you're in control of what you're doing.
Exactly.
Or if you're not doing it, you just kind of go through your day.
You can also
Without not even knowing what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's really good to separate like conscious thought from I guess you call like unconscious actions. So like if you have a set plan today to interrupt your normal habits, so say if I go to McDonald's every day for lunch or whatever it is, with that set list it's kind of like a reminder to interrupt the habits. Because if you just go on autopilot, you're going to do what Jacob referred to and just be so primitive and just do whatever's easiest. So it's like always path of least resistance. That's why it's really hard to make good decisions when you're extremely fatigued. So there's just not enough room for the active thought, so you're going to just complete autopilot. But having things like what Jack said, and that's what he's referring to there, that interrupts it and it keeps you flowing and it keeps the positive momentum continuing to go.
All right, last page, guys, or like sort of semi-last page. We have a little activity for you guys to do at the end. We're going to kick this off. Last little bit of it is like a little bit of things like most of you guys know, most of you guys have heard me talk about before that like last year we spoke about that I mentioned about the Arnolds. A few weeks after that happened, when I got my invite, I was training for the event, and my coach Brad actually had a heart attack. So he passed away 3 weeks before the event was meant to happen. As you'd expect, that's a little bit of like an unexpected thing, like a big hurdle in the road. And I was like, well, we had these goals that we'd set out together that was like, okay, this is what we're doing this year. I wasn't actually even planning on getting to at that point. I wanted to get to the one that we're coming up to in March this year. But I was like, okay, well, do I pull out? Do I keep on going? And in the end, like I was like, no, I just keep on going. I stick to the plan of what we had, and we'll take action on that. Got through the Arnolds, and it came up to New South Wales Strongest Man was the next major competition. So we had, I was basically mentored in strongman or getting into the sport by both Brad and another friend, Jared. Jared and Brad were very, very close, and he recently pulled out of the sport as well and has retired and focused on family stuff. And he sent me a message, and the two of those guys had never won the competition. They'd always been second, third, knocked off by somebody else. And he sends me a message and goes, dude, you need to win it this year for Brad. One of us needs to get it done. I'm out. You've got this. I believe in you. And so we went through there. We got there. We got to the last event, and it came down to the event that I was the least confident in out of the whole thing. Every person that went before me exceeded what I'd been able to do in the gym. Like I was at the point of like shitting myself. I was like, my head's starting to go, I'm so close, and then this happened. It was like this big hurdle right in front of me, right at the finish line. I was in the lead, I had it, it was all going well up to that point, and then everyone was better than me at the stones. And I had to win that event to make sure it was locked in. Most I'd done in the gym before that point was 4. It was max reps in a minute with the 120 stone. Coming into that comp, I was like, okay, I need to have a lead before I get to that point, and then hopefully that gets me over the line. Everyone comes out and gets 6. If I didn't win that one, I was back down to second place. If I win the event, I win, and I brought it home for the coach. So I'm sitting there nervous, getting like, fuck, how do I do this? How am I gonna get this over the line? I need to like literally do 3 more reps than I've ever done at this weight. Once you get into that point, and once I started moving, I got into the zone, it started to happen. I got the first 3 reps out in 15 seconds. I was like, shit, this is moving okay, this is going well. I had a bit of momentum. I get the 4th one out, and I'm like, sweet, this is the best that I've done in the gym. It's only 20 seconds down. By about 40-second mark, I hit the 6th rep, which puts me in the point, like I've already exceeded what I'd ever done before, and it put me in the point that now I'm in a tied position, so I can't lose the event. So that was a pretty special thing. I go from there, I hit a 7th, and then with 5 seconds to go, I hit an 8th rep to double my best ever effort in the gym. And then it all hit me. I was like, shit, I've done it. Like I've done the job that I didn't think that I could do. I thought my best potential was going to be get on the podium, finish in 3rd for the year. I ended up winning overall, which was a bunch of things that came into account for that. I had the tools. Brad and I had worked it out. We had the strategies of how we were going to go about it to take me from point A to point B. This is the stuff that we've talked about with you guys today. I had the supportive network. I had Brad originally, and I had Jared reach out and go, like, sometimes all you need to hear is like, hey man, like, I believe in you. You got this. You can do this. And then I did the work. I put in the work. I didn't miss a training session. I made sure that I showed up, no matter how hard it was, no matter if it was the things that I didn't want to do, I continued to show up. So that's where we're wrapping up here, guys. Like, we've got 3 things. You guys now have the tools. You guys have us here. We're in your corner. We'll always be in your corner. If you need anything, you reach out. And everyone here, like, whatever you want to achieve, like, I believe in each one of you that you can do it, so long as you're willing to take the step. So long as you're willing to do the work. And this is where it comes down to you guys now. You guys have the complete power to take any action and get to anywhere that you want in your life. But that's, one, it can be scary because you have the complete power. You're the only person in control. But also, you're the only person in control, so there's nobody that can get in your way if you want to do it and you're willing to take those steps. So we have one last little thing for you guys to do. If you want to flip over the page. We've talked about our first 30-day task or our first 30-day challenge project for you guys here. I'm going to get you guys to pull the last piece of page. It's got the Newstrength logo on there by itself. I want you guys to write a short letter to yourself in 30 days. So this is up to you to make a commitment to yourself and tell yourself, read through that little brief, where you expect yourself to be in 30 days. Remind them of why are you going on this journey? Where are you going? Where are we going to be at the end of 2020? And why that's important to you. And once we've got that piece down pat, I want you guys to list those daily and weekly habits that you guys need to move yourself closer to the goals of what, by this point at the end of the 30 days, this is what you've been doing every week or every day to get you there. And then anything that you guys need to hear, if there's something that you need to go, hey, like, Jacob, I believe in you, man. You've got this. Just trust in yourself and follow the process. You can do this. Finish it off on something like that. Sign it. And then I have envelopes around here. I'm going to give each of you guys an envelope to write your own address on and seal the letter. Nobody else needs to see it, so we're not going to read it. We're going to send this out to you guys in a month's time.
I'm so excited to get it already.
And there's two ends of this. Like I got this from a workshop that I went to roughly about 12 months ago as well. The guy was from California, and like I was like, he's not sending it out in Australia. It's just an activity. 8 weeks later, I got it in the mail, and I was like, oh shit, did I do everything that I wrote down on that page? Like, so it actually took me probably 3 days before I opened it because I was so nervous of like, man. I was so nervous that I'd like hadn't followed through with those things that I'd committed to myself to doing, and I was like, this isn't good, this is scary. The day I opened it, I was actually quite surprised. I read it and I was like, you know what, like, I did make those commitments, I did take action on those things. A few of them weren't as like to the T as what the commitment that I'd made, but I knew that I was moving the needle forward, and it helped me make the commitment to continue taking those actions. And that's where we're going to leave you guys today. So I'm going to get these envelopes and hand them out. And now it's up to you guys to make the commitment to yourself and start taking action.